Sharkie Gamer here. So today we're taking a look at the Gamester / Lotus Pro Racer 2 handheld steering wheel controller. This is for PlayStation 2, and this is basically a sequel to the original Pro Racer controller. Now, if you haven't seen the original Pro Racer controller, I have done a review. I'll put a link down in the description in case you guys want to go see what that one looks like. Because if you have seen the original Pro Racer, you'll look at this one and you'll think it definitely looks different. That is because they've taken what was good about the original Pro Racer, having a small handheld steering wheel, and they've upgraded the sort of look of it into what is now the Pro Racer 2. So first up, you can see it's got a standard PlayStation 2 connection, and it's got a fairly long cable, should be long enough to go towards your console. Moving on to the wheel portion, the color looks pretty cool. It's got that black with the blue kind of streaks down the side there. It does make it look pretty cool. Now, if you're looking at this and you're thinking, how do I steer my car in a racing game? It is meant to be a wheel after all. Well, it is very easy. It's actually built into the wheel itself. So when you're holding it like this, all you do is move your hand like this. And that'll steer your car left and right. You can also use the other side if you prefer. Pretty much works the same way. I would recommend using it from one of the sides. You can also do this, but that is a bit more, looks a bit weirder, and it may confuse you a bit when you're playing. But it's meant to just use one side, and you just steer your car like that. Moving in for a closer look. First up, you can see your logos here. You've got Gamester and Lotus. Now at the top here, you've got your select and start buttons. So select, start, and then here you've got L3 and R3. And of course, those two are basically what normally would be when you click down your analog stick on a standard gamepad. They feel alright. They're pretty firm, but they're easy to press when you need them. Over here, you've got a D-pad. Now this is very firm. It takes a bit of effort to push down. But lucky you'll only be using that really when you're, especially if you're playing a racing game, you'll only be using it with menus and little bits and pieces like that. You shouldn't really need it too often, unless the game needs it, which it is there in case a game does need it for more. Over the side, you've got your function buttons. So you've got your X, square, triangle, and circle. These are a bit smaller in size in comparison to your standard controller, but they still look alright and they feel alright to press. Moving on to the back here, you've got your standard bumper buttons. So this is R1 and R2, and over here is L1 and L2. And these basically, when you're holding the wheel like this, your two back fingers here go on top of those bumper buttons, and you can easily press them down. These press down really nicely, really responsive. And it's easy to reach as well when you're holding the wheel. Your hands just naturally just go at the back there. So it's really well designed, the fact that it does fit into your hand quite nicely. So your back fingers hit those bumper buttons, and your thumbs basically either hit your function buttons or your D-pad. And you can also reach these buttons down here if you need to. Now moving back into the center here, you've also got a mode button, which is this red button just there. Normally when you plug this in, that'll light up as well. But that is mode, and that basically allows you to turn analog, as well as a dual force, which is like the vibration function. So the vibration function just gives you a little bit of extra feedback when you're playing a racing game, while analog of course gives you a more smoother racing experience. But of course, if you're playing a game with digital, you can turn that off so you can actually play a game with digital. So even though it doesn't look as weird as some of the other, like the other Pro Racer, the original Pro Racer looked really kind of a strange controller. This one looks more like a standard wheel, but it's still small and portable. It works great with all kinds of racing games. And like I said before, it is small and portable, which is great in case you didn't want a huge steering wheel. So if you want to play racing games, but you don't like thinking, oh, I don't want to buy a big wheel because it takes up so much space, you know, it's so large, but at the same time, you still don't want to use a gamepad to play with it because a gamepad is not really built for a racing game, then this is something for you. Because it's something in between, it's not a gamepad, but it's not as large as a steering wheel, like a full function steering wheel with pedals and everything. It's just a small, kind of portable, handheld racing wheel. It's just the sort of size of a gamepad type thing, won't take up much space, and it gives you a better experience playing racing games than, say, a gamepad would. And it looks pretty cool as well. It's got a cool kind of color scheme, cool looking design. The thing that I don't like in comparison to the original Pro Racer is that they didn't include the extra 2 analog buttons the original one had. See, the original controller had these 2 buttons for accelerate and brake, and basically they were analog and they were there to replace pedals, so you had sort of a more dynamic kind of way of accelerating and braking. This one just expects you to use your standard buttons. So it's kind of a disappointment that they didn't include that, because they did improve the design of the wheel itself. They made it a bit bigger, they made it a bit more comfortable to hold, and it is more comfortable than the original one to hold and everything. You can reach everything really nicely, but if they had just included those extra 2 buttons, those 2 extra analog buttons, to kind of replace those pedals, it would have been really cool. It really would have made a difference with this thing. I miss those buttons, because even though you can use these buttons, there's no problem. There's a thing about those analog buttons that just feels really nice when you're racing, because it just really kind of, it's trying to replicate pedals. So overall, they have improved most of it, but there are still a couple of features that the original has that this one doesn't, which does kind of make the original one a little bit better. But in terms of comfort and using it, this one's more comfortable to actually play a game with. The thing is, you don't actually see these much anymore. They're getting harder to find now. You occasionally see them up on eBay and everything, but you don't see them that often. The original Pro Racer is a lot easier to find, and this one is not that easy. You would think this would be easier, but it's not. So yeah, that is the Pro Racer 2, a great portable style handheld steering wheel for PlayStation 2. Looks pretty cool. So you guys, thanks for watching. I am Sharkie Gamer. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'll have heaps more gaming controller and accessory videos up very soon. Feel free to leave a comment down below if you want to, and if you like this video, hit that like button. Really helps out a lot, guys. Thanks for watching.